Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakavalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakambitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vindavanispari Visabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. I was told that Sri Krishna Pusha Abhishek is on the 17th. In our calendar is advanced, eh? Just give me a few seconds, please. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So, finally, we decided to start studying and reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is the, as Prabhupada says, this is the doctorate level study in Krishna consciousness, the ABC book of knowledge is the Bhagavad-Gita. Then the intermediate study is the Srimad Bhagavatam, and then Chaitanya Charitamrita, the doctorate level. But even in the early days, since 1967, Srila Prabhupada, our movement still like in the early stage, Prabhupada was giving Chaitanya Charitamrita classes in New York. And you may say, how is that? Because those days, practically not everyone are very familiar with our philosophy, our Vaishnava philosophy. But nevertheless, there is no difference between the teachings of Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad-Gita and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in Chaitanya Charitamrita, or the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he's none other than Radha and Krishna combined. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahi Anya, to teach us how to develop love of God, how to be a devotee. He is God Himself, and to show us how to develop love towards Himself, He came as a devotee. And therefore, throughout His life, He exemplified the topmost devotee of Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna, in the form of a devotee, is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And moreover, in the mood of Srimati Radharani, because Srimati Radharani has the highest love, highest devotion, highest form of expression of love towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Again, Radharani is none other than Krishna, but in a female form, in the mood of devotion, of love. And that mood is carried and expressed, exemplified, along with the associates of the Lord Himself 500 years ago in this planet, specifically Navadvip, Mayapur, Vrindavan, and mostly the later part of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Jagannath Puri. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami wrote this book at the ripened age, over 90 years old. And to confirm how he's able to do it is very gigantic, tremendous work, is when he was having a darshan of Madan Mohan. A flower garland fell from the Archavigraha form of Madan Mohan to confirm. And based from the Kadacha, or notebook, written by Sarup Damodar, collected by him because he's the personal secretary, servant of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the later pastimes. So in those days, in our movement, it takes 3 months to 4 months to publish one book. This was around 1973, 74. Prabhupada already finished the manuscripts of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the BBT press was transferred from New York to Los Angeles. Los Angeles became our world headquarters, even though not many temples yet. And Prabhupada was in Hawaii, and he was saying, this is a great problem in our movement. Well, actually, he was giving class, and that day, Srimad Bhagavatam, he was saying how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur instructed him, especially in the last days, in Radhakund also, when he was doing the parikrama, 1932 or 22, something like that. If you ever get money, print books. And he took it as his life and soul, that instruction. So, and in that there was a meeting also in Radhakund with his main sannyasi disciples, senior disciples, that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was saying that it's better we sell the marbles in Bag Bazaar temple, the Gaudiya temple, because everyone is fighting which room will be his, what room, which room. It says better than sell the marbles and we will print books. So he emphasized this. And then in the morning walk, many senior disciples of Srila Prabhupada were there. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Brahmananda Prabhu, Radha Vallabha Prabhu, Rameswar Prabhu, who is the supervising the press in Los Angeles. So Prabhupada was saying that I have finished all the manuscripts and you are not printing them. It's a backlog, big backlog. The 5th canto is finished. The remaining of the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam still unfinished. And then Rameswar says, Prabhupada, we will try to print 1 book per month. He says, then Prabhupada says, no, 17 volumes, I will take over a year. This is a great problem in our movement right now. I'm not being encouraged if you do like this. And then Prabhupada says, I want you to finish the Chaitanya Charitamrita in 2 months. Prabhupada, how can this be? We're printing 1 book in 3 months, and now you're asking us to print the 17 volumes in 2 months. Because Chaitanya Charitamrita is written in Bengali. And the devotees in the BBT press, they're already familiar with Sanskrit. Bengali, not very many are familiar. So there are many problems, Rameswar Prabhu says. First of all, we don't have any expert in Bengali language. And the paintings, it takes some time. Prabhupada says, Rameswar Prabhu says, no, Prabhupada, this is impossible. We cannot do it. And Prabhupada says, impossible is can be found in the book of Fool.
Fool's Dictionary.
Fool's Dictionary, yes. Fool's Dictionary. You have a Fool's Dictionary with you? Then Rameswar cannot say, no, Prabhupada, this is not possible. Because to say that, he will be doubting the words of a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. So Rameswar says, okay, we will try to do that, but actually they cannot figure out how to do it. And even after the class, they were trying to figure out Radha Vallabha Prabhu and Rameswar. So they went to Prabhupada's room and says, we will do your instruction, provided that you should be available, so that if the Bengali, the ones who's translating the Bengali words, they will have someone to confer from, and you're the main person who can do it. And also, the paintings, is it all right if the paintings will be not exactly to what, really nice? Yes, if you can see the paintings in Chaitanya Charitamrita, they're not all very, it's a little bit, it's not crude, but not to the best, because only later on, the paintings became a little bit more like realistic, so to speak. And he asked Prabhupada if we can use also some of the photos where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went. He did his pilgrim. Prabhupada agreed to all of those. And practically the story went that it's a big marathon, 2 months, 17 volumes. The devotees didn't leave the press. They were just there. They eat there, they sleep there. In 2 months. This is like really impossible in the material platform. Only in the spiritual platform this can be accomplished. And they used to print their books in Dai Nippon in Japan. Prabhupada says, no, we should print them in our press in Los Angeles. So what we're going to do is we're going to read from the preface, which was a recorded lecture by Srila Prabhupada on March 14, 1968. This is Gaur Purnima, C.C. Radha Krishna Temple, New York, New York. It's very exhaustive. I mean, it's very like 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 pages. So many information, so much information, our philosophy, Srila Prabhupada condensed. And then, later on, we will read the introduction. Then we will proceed towards the Adilila, first sloka. So it may take us some time, because we're going to do this weekly. But this is the sweetest part. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes are very sweet. It specifically talks about relationship with devotees, how we relate to each other, should be relating to each other as devotees. So, preface. There is no difference between the teachings of Lord Chaitanya presented here and the teachings of Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad-Gita. The teachings of Lord Chaitanya are practical demonstrations of Lord Krishna's teachings. How? Because in the Bhagavad-Gita, Lord Krishna says, surrender unto me. And then Lord Krishna, if you don't surrender, then you don't get full protection and He will not protect us. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life is an expression again of surrender and how he lived as a devotee. Lord Krishna's ultimate instruction in the Bhagavad-Gita is that everyone should surrender unto him. Lord Krishna promises to take immediate charge of such a surrendered soul. The Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is already in charge of the maintenance of this creation by virtue of His plenary expansion, Kshirdakashayi Vishnu. But this maintenance is not direct. However, when the Lord says that He takes charge of His pure devotee, He actually takes direct charge. Prabhupada can say this because he has experience of that also, based from his deep realization. It's like, let Krishna be the driver. Take charge. Let us just follow the way how he will lead us to. A pure devotee is a soul who is forever surrendered to the Lord, just as a child is surrendered to his parents or an animal to its master. See, how Prabhupada writes is how he realized it, how he lived, how being a surrendered soul himself, coming to America by the instruction of his Guru Maharaj. How can he do that if he is not surrendered? In the surrendering process, one should 1. Accept things favorable for discharging devotional service. 2. Reject things unfavorable. 3. Always believe firmly in the Lord's protection. 4. Feel exclusively dependent on the mercy of the Lord. 5. Have no interest separate from the interest of the Lord. And 6. Always feel oneself meek and humble. So this is Saranagati. Explains also by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So this is how one should be in the mood of surrender. And those who are practicing in devotees in Krishna consciousness should follow these 6 processes of surrender. And we do that automatically. Those who accept initiation, bona fide initiation in our line of disciplic succession, automatically one should be following this. Following the 4 regulative principles, that means accepting things favorable for discharging devotional service, coming for the morning program, performing practical devotional service during the whole day, rejecting things unfavorable, especially to avoid the association of non-devotees. Always believe firmly in the Lord's protection, to be His friend, feel exclusively dependent on the mercy of the Lord. All of this. Just these 6 processes is one class itself. However, we'll just go on. The Lord demands that one surrender unto Him by following these 6 guidelines. But the unintelligent so-called scholars of the world misunderstand these demands and urge the general mass of people to reject them. At the conclusion of the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, Lord Krishna directly orders, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer obeisances unto me alone. The 9th chapter is the middle chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita. It's the most confidential knowledge. And it's right there in the end. And it was repeated again in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita. Practically the same sloka. Manmana mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. By so doing, the Lord says, one is sure to go to Him in His transcendental abode. He guarantees. But the scholarly demons misguide the masses of people by directing them to surrender not to the personality of Godhead, but rather to the impersonal, unmanifested, eternal, unborn truth. The impersonalist Mayavadi philosophers do not accept that the ultimate aspect of the absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one desires to understand the sun as it is, one must first face the sunshine and then the sun globe. And then, if one is able to enter into that globe, one may come face to face with the predominating deity of the sun. Prabhupada uses the sun analogy in many ways. Due to a poor fund of knowledge, the Mayavadi philosophers cannot go beyond the Brahman effulgence, which may be compared to the sunshine. The Upanishads confirm that one has to penetrate the dazzling effulgence of Brahman before one can see the real face of the personality of Godhead. So this Brahman effulgence is the light emanating from the transcendental form of the Supreme Lord. And that also penetrates even going to the material world. It's like the sunshine. Prabhupada says the sunshine also is a reflection of this Brahman effulgence. And in the spiritual world, there is no need of light, nor moonshine, nor sunlight, because of this effulgence emanating, pervading all over the spiritual sky. Lord Chaitanya therefore teaches direct worship of Lord Krishna, who appeared as the foster child of the king of Braj. He also teaches that the place known as Vrindavan is as good as Lord Krishna, because Lord Krishna is being the absolute truth. There is no difference between him and his name, qualities, form, pastimes, entourage, and paraphernalia. Brajendra Nandana ye Sachisuta hoilo se Balaram hoilo nitai. Brajendra Nandan Krishna is another than Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Vrindavan, this Boma Vrindavan is a replica of the original Goloka Vrindavan. Vrindavan manifests from the energy of Lord Balaram to serve Lord Krishna in his pastimes. There is no difference between him, his name, qualities, form, and pastimes. That means the supreme absolute truth. That is the meaning of the supreme absolute truth. The name, form, qualities, pastimes, entourage, and paraphernalia are none different than the Supreme Lord himself. That is the absolute nature of the personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya also teaches that the highest mode of worship in the highest perfectional stage is the method practiced by the damsels of Braj. Yes, if one wants to develop love for Krishna in the mood of the Brajabasis, then one has to follow in the footsteps of one of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. We can follow only in their footsteps. We cannot imitate them, and we cannot be another person that of the close associate of Lord Krishna. They cannot be two Mother Yasodas or two Nanda Maharaj. These damsels, gopis or cowherd girls, simply love Krishna without any motive for material or spiritual gain. Yes, the topmost are the gopis, that love that they have towards Lord Krishna. They broke all the moral rules. They go beyond the rules of the sastras. They forsake everyone, even their family, just to be with Krishna. Almost impossible to do, but they did it. Lord Chaitanya also teaches that Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless narration of transcendental knowledge, and that the highest goal in human life is to develop unalloyed love for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam, Amala Puranam, transcendental knowledge. The Mayavadis cannot touch even the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is so exact. You cannot manipulate, you cannot subtract, you cannot add. Lord Chaitanya's teachings are identical to those by Lord Kapila, the original propounder of Sankhya Yoga, the Sankhya system of philosophy. This is in the 3rd canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Kapila, son of Mother Devahuti and Kardama Muni. This authorized system of yoga teaches meditation on the transcendental form of the Lord. There is no question of meditating on something void or impersonal. How can you meditate and one hand clapping? Can you do that? Maybe there's a little bit of sound here. Not really. Or meditate on the light. Prabhupada was giving a class, he says, "Oh, I'm seeing light. Don't worry, keep meditating, that will go away." When one can meditate on the transcendental form of Lord Vishnu, even without practicing involved sitting postures, such meditation is called perfect samadhi. That is the highest level when one comes to the platform, that when he meditates, then he will actually see the Supreme Lord face to face. That this kind of meditation is perfect samadhi is confirmed at the end of the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, where Lord Krishna says that of all yogis, the greatest is the one who constantly thinks of the Lord within the core of his heart with love and devotion. What's that verse? Yoginam apisarvesam matgatenan taratmana sadavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. Yes. Who is always thinking of Krishna, meditating on the Supreme Lord, he is the highest yogi. And that is our purpose. On the basis of the Sankhya philosophy of Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, which maintains that the Supreme Lord is simultaneously one with and different from his creation, Lord Chaitanya taught that the most practical way for the mass of people to practice Sankhya Yoga meditation is simply to chant the holy name of the Lord. He made it so simple. And still we're finding it very difficult. Why? Because we don't put it as our priority. If our priority is to chant and hear Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting Hare Krishna, then everything will be so simple, everything will be so easy. As Srutakirti Prabhu's book, What is the Difficulty? There is no difficulty. He taught that the holy name of the Lord is a sound incarnation of the Lord, and that since the Lord is the absolute whole, there is no difference between his holy name and his transcendental form. There's no difference. This is again the absolute truth. The name is none different than the personality, and that applies unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It doesn't apply to us. Thus, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can directly associate with the Supreme Lord by sound vibration. And as Prabhupada says, when you chant purely the holy name of the Lord is dancing on your tongue. As one practices chanting this sound vibration, one passes through 3 stages of development. the offensive stage, the clearing stage, and the transcendental stage. In the offensive stage of chanting, one may desire all kinds of material happiness. This is in the platform of prakrita, bhakti, materialistic kind of execution of devotional service, asking for many material desires to be fulfilled, because the holy name is Chintamani, fulfills everyone's desires spiritually and materially. But in the second stage, one becomes clear of all material contamination. This is the clearing stage, namabhas. And even in the namabhas, it says that one is in the liberated platform. When one is situated on the transcendental stage, one attains the most coveted position, the stage of loving God. Lord Chaitanya taught that this is the highest stage of perfection for human beings. So the process is very simple. Chant Hare Krishna, Mahamantra, to understand that there is no difference between the Holy Name and the Supreme Lord Himself. But still, we have to go through all these different stages before one can attain pure devotional service. And when one attains that pure, loving devotion towards the Supreme Lord, then he will feel separation, even though he attains already love of God. Just like in the last part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where the Supreme Lord exemplifies these feelings of separation in Jagannath Puri. That is the highest. Even the mundane scholars and academicians, they cannot explain this ecstatic love that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed or exhibited. Is beyond their comprehension, because it takes one to know one. Yoga practice is essentially meant for controlling the senses. The central controlling factor of all the senses is the mind. Therefore, one first has to practice controlling the mind by engaging it in Krishna consciousness. So this is our first business, to control the mind, the turbulent mind, the flickering mind, the tricky mind. It says that in the Bhagavad-Gita, the mind can be our worst enemy or our greatest friend, best friend. But how to control the mind? Prabhupada says, not possible to control the mind. There's only one way you can control the mind, by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So when the mind troubles us, start chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But sometimes, Maharaj, when I'm chanting, my mind also is very disturbed. Ignore the mind. Keep chanting. The mind will be... If you ignore the mind, it's like, someone goes to your home uninvited. You just ignore. What will that person will do? He will go away. You say, hey, he's not entertaining me. He's not even giving me a glass of water. So similarly, this is the best way how to do it. The gross activities of the mind are expressed through the external senses, either for the acquisition of knowledge or for the function of the senses in accordance with the will. The subtle activities of the mind are thinking, feeling, and willing, which are carried out according to one's consciousness, either polluted or clear. If you have a clean heart, you have also a peaceful mind. If your mind is very flickering, and that means your heart also is unclean. It's synonymous, the heart and the mind. If one's mind is fixed on Krishna, His name, qualities, form, pastimes, entourage, and paraphernalia, all one's activities, both subtle and gross, become favorable. It's amazing how Prabhupada gave us everything to become Krishna conscious, all the facilities available. If you really think about it, there is nothing to be asked for. We have everything, right from the early morning Mangalartik till we go to sleep. Everything is there for us to be Krishna conscious. All of these are available freely. The Bhagavad-Gita's process of purifying consciousness is the process of fixing one's mind on Krishna by talking of His transcendental activities, cleansing the temple, going to His temple, seeing the beautiful transcendental form of the Lord nicely decorated, hearing His transcendental glories, tasting food offered to Him, associating with His devotees, smelling the flowers and tulsi leaves offered to Him, engaging in activities for the Lord's interest, becoming angry at those who are malicious towards devotees, etc. Are we doing all of this every day? Of course. We're doing this every day. So if you keep doing this, including me, we'll go back home, back to Godhead. Isn't it? Everything written here, we do it every day. But our consciousness should be favorable towards Krishna. It should be favorable. And there is this becoming angry at those who are malicious towards devotees. There was a nice article I was reading. We should actually, yes, forgive this. But if they become abusive, maybe they can do it once or twice, yes, they can be forgiven. But then they keep doing it. It says that we should give them to the authority. Of course, you will never see in the Shastra that becoming angry, but it says, Prabhupada says, becoming angry at those who are malicious toward devotees, especially non-devotees. But there are other devotees who are also offensive towards other devotees. What to do with them? Because they are in the lowest grade of bhakti. Pray for them as much as possible. Try to talk to them. Encourage them. Give them chance. But there is a certain limit also. No one can bring the activities of the mind and senses to a stop. But one can purify these activities through a change in consciousness. This is indicated in the Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 2, text 39, where Krishna tells Arjuna of the knowledge of yoga, whereby one can work without fruitive results. O son of Pritha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. Does anybody knows the Sanskrit for that? Which one? Is this there? No. A human being is sometimes restricted in sense gratification due to a certain circumstances, such a disease, but such prescriptions are for the less intelligent. Without knowing the actual process by which the mind and senses can be controlled, less intelligent men may try to stop the mind and senses by force, but ultimately they give in to them and are carried away by the waves of sense gratification. Yes, Prabhupada gave many lectures in the early days in Bhagavad-Gita. He says, dovetail our consciousness to the Supreme Consciousness. Dovetailing our mind to Krishna consciousness. You cannot leave the mind blank. The mind has to always be thinking of something. And the senses also has to be engaged all the time. So use them for Krishna's service. The 8 principles of Sankhya Yoga, observing the regulative principles, following the rules, practicing the various sitting postures, performing the breathing exercises, withdrawing one's senses from the sense objects, etc., are meant for those who are too much engrossed in the bodily conception of life. The intelligent man situated in Krishna consciousness does not try to forcibly stop his senses from acting. Cannot be artificial. Rather, he engages his senses in the service of Krishna.
No, you lost it.
I guess we stop here. It's already 9 o'clock also, and it's amazing how Prabhupada explains the philosophy of Krishna consciousness just in 3 or 4 pages. We have 1 more page to go, and that is only the preface. We have to sharpen our intelligence in this way so that when Maya attacks us, we can defend ourselves with the sharp sword of knowledge. This is how we can ascertain whether we're making advancement or not in Krishna consciousness. When Maya attacks us, what to do? Shall I give in? Or I can say no. Is there any points or questions in this regard? Pritu Prabhu?
Two examples in my experience that Prabhupada showed his humility, and there's another example where he showed his anger. As far as humility is concerned, one time Prabhupada gave a lecture in the University of Stockholm, and we knew that this is a very radical leftist, socialist, communist, anarchist student.
Practically everywhere in those days.
Prabhupada didn't know that. But he came there and he sat down, looked at everybody, and then he said, so, in the middle of people who didn't believe in the classes of society, he said, there are 4 classes of men. The first thing he said, shocking everybody. And then he explained, there's first class men, second class men, third class men, and ultimately Sudras. And people became more and more uptight. So then finally somebody kept on going, the first class, second, and then one man stood up. He said, of course you think you're a first class man. Sitting on a high throne, everybody goes down to you, covered in flowers. My blood was boiling. I was so angry, inside the Prabhupada like this. And I went after you to just jump up and smash his fellow. Prabhupada, he said, no. He said, you misunderstand me. He said, I'm not first class. He said, I'm 5th class.
5th class.
There was absolute silence in the room, And then Prabhupada added, I happened to sit there because I arranged his Vyasa-san. He said, because I'm the servant of, I'm 5th class, because I'm the servant of everyone. 2 huge tears came, just It was so beautiful because it was a practical demonstration of how it was actually the servant of everyone. There was no ego. He didn't feel offended, but he told them the truth. And he was deeply hurt inside, and you could see the tears were pouring. This is one example where you could see what class of Prabhupada had. Then another example, this is last one, so short. When Prabhupada was giving a lecture in Calcutta, there were Naxalites there in the audience, communists.
Yes.
And so at one stage, the communists went to the stage and they grabbed one devotee by the dhoti. Prabhupada was just singing, Janardana, grabbed one devotee and tried to pull him down from the stage. So Prabhupada jumped up, he took his skulls and smashed his skull with his ear.
Hare Krishna.
Actually, blood came out.
Hare Bo.
You know, and all the Naxalites running away from Prabhupada. So he manifested a very ferocious form of anger, actually. At that moment, people were shocked how this humble gentleman who was sitting on the Vyasa all of a sudden become so ferociously angry. So he has these two things side by side.
For ourselves, if we're being criticized or blasphemed, we should take it as actually we deserve it. And for the devotee, he knew that, yes, there's a room for improvement for me. Devotee doesn't get angry if this is being done to himself. But as Hanuman, he became angry also. Because Ravana doing this to Sita Devi and Ravana, and Ravana to Lord Ramachandra. So similarly for us, we can become angry. In those days, there are many fist fights also, the devotees with the karmis, because they're to protect the devotees. Another one? Huh? Another story from Prithu Prabhu. Devotees? Devotees. There you go.
The Buddhists were distributing books in Los Angeles, and there was one man who would always come and take the book and rip it into pieces, and sometimes lead the devotees with it. So we had one devotee, Keshava, and he was a Kshatriya, he came from Vietnam. I think he was a Marine Barrett, fresh from Vietnam, from the Vietnam War.
Marine.
So he heard about it. He told the devotees, don't worry, I take care of it. So he went, and he watched the man doing this. And he was sitting for half an hour looking at it. The man had to go to the bathroom, and Keshava followed him. And the rest is easy to understand. He just beat the guy, like anything. So Prabhupada heard about that. He called Keshava and his room and said, Keshava, where have you been today? So I went to the airport. And what did you do at the airport? Well, I was sitting there for some time. The Prabhupada said, what were you looking at? He said, there was this man, Prabhupada had pulled everything out of him. There was this man who was taking the books, ripping them, and sometimes even beating the devotees. Really, Prabhupada. And what did you do then? Well, I just followed him. Where did you go? To the bathroom. And then he said, I beat him really hard. and Prabhupada said, very nice. There was a tape in the old days. Listen to this very nice of Prabhupada hundreds of times. It was so ecstatic. That Prabhupada
We may not be able to do that, but to the extreme, yes, we should defend. Especially if the deities also are being harmed, just like in Mayapur. They tried to steal, they thought that Srimati Radharani's murti and Prabhupada's small murti are made of gold. So the Gundas came one night and there were some shots done. That's why one of our sannyasi, his leg was cut off. And Prabhupada says, yes, you should get guns in Vrindavan also. There's a lot of cowboys here. bad cowboys. He says that for our Goshala. Sometimes they steal our cows. I remember one night they were stealing our cows. So we cannot do anything. We cannot defend ourselves. Yeah, Kshatriyas must be there also, defending our movement. Srila Prabhupada ke, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ke, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.